Episode 3 of the third season of From has just been released, and with it being titled Mousetrap, there were many different meanings that we could take away from it. With this feeling like a very compartmentalized episode in the sense that there wasn't actually that much action and every group was pretty much doing their own thing. It separated all of the individual plots that we're seeing arise that have importance and it started progressing them forwards. For example, there were clues about what could happen to Fatima, Boyd and his want for change, and also Jade and the fact that things were getting worse in the town. So with that, let's jump into the episode and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is From Season 3, Episode 3, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The Mousetrap Explained. With this episode being titled Mousetrap, I felt like we were going to see either Boyd trapping one of the creatures, which is exactly what he wanted to do, or we were going to see Kenny, Jade, Christy, and the rest of the group being trapped in the forest as they were lured there due to the food which Jim found, which almost acted like the cheese on a trap. However, we saw none of that happen, which makes me think that we're going to be seeing the action occurring in the next episode, and the trap is going to be centered around Kenny and the group in the forest. The group are pretty much stuck there now due to the fact that it's nightfall, and with Jade seeing the person from the past that was dead, and also with Christy's foot being injured, they're now going to be forced to stay there in the huts that were there. We found out in this episode that the weird spooky dolls that were around the perimeter almost acted like the talismans which kept the creatures out, but there was a moment where one of the dolls dropped to the ground and it's now made me think that the creatures now have an opening of being able to get in. This happened when Jade and Dal wanted a stronger stick to pry open the trap on Christy's leg. So with them spending the night in the forest, with an opening in the talisman and us hearing things occurring there when Jim and Kenny were there, the mousetrap will be in full effect, and whatever wanted to trap Kenny and the group there, they've now successfully done so, and they'll be able to act. The fresh produce was the cheese, and the forest was the trap. Boyd didn't actually feature too much in this episode, but his involvement was something that felt like it was more so focused on the next episode in the show. Following the end of episode 2, where he said that he wanted to trap one of the creatures, he mentioned it to Ellis and Donna, and they both tried to talk him out of doing it. However, it seems like it's fallen on deaf ears and he's going to be trying to trap one anyway. His whole mindset and demeanor has changed following Tianshen's death, and he no longer wants to just wait and hope that they all survive. He wants things to change and to go on the offensive so that he can find out more about these creatures, where they came from, and what it is they actually want with everybody. Hopefully leading him to getting one step closer and finding a way out of there, rather than having to live in fear. Katri has been somebody that's been coming back to him as a vision and almost being the sense that he needs to hear, but he's shutting it out and choosing not to listen to it, despite that being the route that realistically he should go down. He approached Randall in this episode and asked if they could swap places that evening so that he could sit in the bus and monitor the creatures. So he's definitely going to be going ahead with the tiny plan that he's got. The problem is he's reacting rather than acting with a logical plan. He's letting revenge, anger, and other emotions dictate how he's feeling, and that's never a good way to act in a situation. The creatures said that they wanted the town to break Boyd, and by him going outside during the darkness without a solid, well-thought-out plan, that shows that he's on the cusp of breaking point, because all he's doing is putting himself and other people in danger without even thinking about it. Fatima's story in this episode developed in a way which showed that there's definitely something sinister that's going on with her. The thing that confirmed it even more so for me was what was said prior to her first scene in the episode. Boyd, Ellis, and Donna were talking about the creature's origin, and it was mentioned that they were once human. I actually believe Ellis might have said that as well. And then once their conversation finished, it cut to Fatima being by the spoiled crops and continuing to eat them. This to me either insinuates that the baby that Fatima is carrying is going to be a creature, or Fatima herself could end up turning and becoming one of the creatures that everybody fears, and the whole baby thing isn't what's causing her to act like that. We saw that Tilly said that she had cravings when she was carrying, but Tilly's involvement showed more importance when she went to do a tarot reading for Fatima, and when she went to do it, a crow flew into the window, got into the room, and then flew into the wall and ultimately died. The sole purpose of that happening was so that the tarot reading was disrupted and it wouldn't take place. Tilly said that she was experienced at now reading tarot cards, so clearly the supernatural forces didn't want her to go through with it and for Fatima to realize something. Crows are said to be symbolic of death and rebirth, and with it being linked with Fatima and the fact that she could potentially end up turning into one of these creatures, that could be the rebirth and death that could occur. Jim Jim got annoyed at Ethan during this week's episode, and to be honest, with the things that Ethan was saying, I'm not surprised. Putting the image into his father and sister's head of their mother lying dead in a forest somewhere with bugs crawling all over her, or just being a pile of bones, is something that's horrific. I understand he's a child, but still, come on. We saw Jim being taunted at the other end of the phone with the voice that was pretending to be his dead son Thomas and saying, "Why did you let mummy go?" And also warning him that it was getting dark outside and that he shouldn't have let Ethan and Judy out. The supernatural edge that the town has is clearly involved in this, and Jim wasn't as sucked into it as I thought he would be. But he should have told Boyd what happened, rather than just shrugging it off. To be honest, what this episode showed with Jim is that he was now starting to feel the weight of everything that was going on in the town. He misses his wife and feels guilty about her going. He can feel the lack of control and distance that's forming between himself and his 2 children. He snapped at Ethan, he snapped at Boyd, and he's fully aware that things are getting worse around the town. So whilst there's been a focus on the town breaking Boyd, in the background we're seeing Jim slowly reaching breaking point at a more rapid pace. Tabitha. Tabitha's story got a whole lot more confusing in this week's episode. During the ending, when she woke up in an ambulance after being in a car accident with Henry, as they were driving to the hospital, the paramedics stopped because there was a tree that had fallen down in the road. The same thing that happened when she ended up trapped in the town the first time round. During this episode, there were a lot of strange nuances and similarities that were present between herself and Miranda, Victor's mother, the former chosen one. For example, the bottle tree was in Henry's front garden, the very thing that leads you to the tower with the children. The song Blue came on the radio, which was Tabby and Jim's favourite song. And Henry also had a bracelet in his glove box, which was the very same bracelet that she made for Jim. This is what led her to start to lose her mind in the car and to just want to get out of it because she was questioning the reality that she was in, fearing that she was just within another layer of what she described as the game, something that was a theory following episode 1. With those similarities being present and the biggest one of them all being the ambulance stopping at the fallen tree, I think we're going to be seeing Tabby, Henry and the paramedics returning to the town and getting stuck there. This would make for an interesting development though, as it would mean that Victor would be reunited with his father for the first time in several decades. It was also approaching nightfall when they were in the ambulance, so it probably means that they're going to be arriving there at a time where the creatures will be in full control and lurking around in the dark. There's going to be deaths in the next episode, you can just tell. My review of the episode. I thought this was just an okay episode of the show. In terms of the episodes that we've had so far in the season, it's probably the weakest in terms of entertainment value, but that was just because it was a pure storytelling episode and a foundation-laying feature. There wasn't much action, and I think we've actually been spoiled in the past couple of episodes as there's been a lot, so when there isn't any action, it does feel like a bit of a shame and as if something's missing. But it's not always necessary, I know that. I've seen some people saying that this was almost like a filler episode, but I don't think that in the slightest. This episode needed to happen, otherwise certain developments wouldn't have been made. I'm not gonna lie though, I would have liked to have seen some creatures, because they are utterly terrifying and petrifying when they're on screen. But judging by the preview for the next episode, it seems like we're going to be getting plenty, so that's something I'm excited about. I think the different arcs that are occurring and the town feeling like a place that's genuinely getting worse is a setting that does have that danger at the core, and it does feel like the residents there are heading in a downwards trajectory. We're seeing divides being formed, the people being put on the back foot, and everybody being impacted in completely different ways, and it's so interesting following that happen. In terms of the performances, I'm actually finding Fatima's performance to be one of the best in the season so far. The emotions that she's having to deliver and the genuine fear and panic that she has inside of her is something that's being executed so well. You get the sense that she's concerned for her future and that something is very wrong, and it's so convincing to see. Considering both Tabby and Fatima are experiencing similar emotions, I would say that Fatima's delivery is so much stronger. This episode didn't actually have that much horror embedded within it, other than the scene with the crow and obviously the section where Jade saw the guy drinking the blood from the skull. But what it did focus on was tension. Tension around if Christy was going to make it out of the bear trap. Tension around Tabby and the connections in Camden and what she'd been through, and also the phone call being something that was going on with Jim. The next episode is titled There and Back Again, and the synopsis is Boyd is forced to make a tough decision when newcomers arrive in town at nightfall, and Victor unearths memories from the past in the hopes of finding answers. These newcomers that are most likely going to be arriving will be the paramedics that were inside of the ambulance at the end of the episode, which could also mean that Tabby will end up back in Fromsville if she stays in the ambulance. There was a clip in the preview where it seemed like Boyd was standing in front of an ambulance, so I think that's going to be the case. With regards to Randall, we saw that he had a hallucination in this episode, and within the preview for the next one, there was a clip of him laying on the ground, surrounded by creatures. So I don't think things are going to be ending well for the character. This season is shaping up to be one that's filled with confusion, but it's not chaotic confusion. The show is deliberately sending us down different pathways to genuinely try and guess what's going on, and I'm absolutely loving it. I just want the next episode to be a little bit darker and bring the creatures back. So, there you have it. From Season 3, Episode 3, Ending Explained. If you want to see every episode of From Season 3 broken down, then click on the card in the top corner. There's a playlist there. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.